Paul Jenner's After 11 guest spot.
Peak Sound Radio.
Well, I'm sat in a lovely little cafe in Whaley Bridge enjoying a coffee with a gentleman by the name of Michael Knowles. Michael is a fellow who's turned his hands to many things over the years, but he's certainly had some success along the way. Good morning, Michael.
Hi Paul, how's it going?
It's good, thank you, and thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
So, I understand that kind of you've got many strings to your bow, but if we were to separate them out into two big lumps, one would go films and one would go music.
That's spot on. Yeah.
Lovely. So can we talk films today?
We can speak about films today.
Thanks very much indeed. Now, when we're talking about films, you've had BAFTA nominations for films before.
Yeah, so basically, the first film I made, a short film called Talking with Angels, was lucky enough to get a BAFTA nomination. So that's how it all really started.
Wow.
And everything that we've really made from the very beginning has been set in the Northwest or had its origins in the Northwest anyway. So Talking with Angels was set in Salford,
right,
and it was a lovely film, and that film took us around the world. So we won festivals in Sydney, and we went to Sundance. I met Robert Redford in Sundance, so it's an amazing experience to be in Sundance with a Sundance kid looking at and he also looks a little bit like my dad. Well, like my dad should look. My dad doesn't look like that, but he's a bit ginger. Because apparently he dyed his hair blonde in the 70s to hide his gingerness.
Good Lord.
So so we got a BAFTA for it. We got Oscars shortlisted.
Wow.
And it was a really good springboard into the films that I've been making. So for the last 15, 17, God, lifetime flies
by. It does.
We've made like 9 features, we've made pop videos, and all from our base, largely in Whaley Bridge, which is where we're sat at the moment. But we've just moved to an office in Macclesfield, so we are in the we used to call it Whaleywood, but the heartbeat is here in the peak.
That's fantastic. You're certainly very high peak based man as it stands at the moment. And over the years, over these 17 or so years you've been involved in films, as you've already mentioned, you've worked with some serious names. But you mentioned to me, for instance, you work with people who've worked with Lady Gaga. There's all sorts of people you've worked with along the way. I mean, I know you don't like to be a name dropper, but drop us a few names.
Well, it's the weird thing is my business partner Andy's always saying I'm rubbish at this bit, but so the second film we did was Pete Postlethwaite's last film.
Okay.
That's a short film called Waving at Trains, and he was absolutely amazing.
Right.
He remembered my grandma from working at the Royal Exchange.
Wow.
He did a film, a theatre play with her and Helen Mirren.
Wow.
And I showed a picture. Oh, he's very good. He's a good actor. He pretended to know her. And I remember saying to him, I'm Mike, nice to meet you. And he said, Mike was my late brother's name. And I'll definitely remember you. And he basically did the film for Crater Guinness.
You're joking.
So he just wanted to do it. He wanted to help support people. So what a gentleman.
Absolutely. That's giving a bit backhand.
So he was lovely. We worked with, the first feature we did was A Boy Called Dad, still available on Amazon, with Ian Hart from Harry Potter and all that. He came up to Whaley, got Harry Potter and David O'Hara, both stars of Harry Potter, coming up here. We've done a film with Stephen Graham, Maxine Peake, which was Best Laid Plans, and last couple as well. We've done a film called The Pebble and the Boy, which is a mod movie, which was shot from Manchester to Brighton with Patsy Kensit.
Right.
And that was really cool. And Running Naked with music by Craig Potter from Elbow. I love that film, Running Naked. You have to watch that. I love all my films, but that's one I wrote with my wife.
Right.
A very personal story.
Which
Which I can tell you about. And the last one we did, which is called Book of Love, which got to number 2 on Amazon in America, and it's just been gone all the way around the world. It's just been like it kind of came out in all the Southern American countries. Came out in Fiji, where I've got a family.
Wow!
And that stars Sam Claflin from the Hunger Games.
From the Hunger Games, yeah.
And it's got music by Red One, who works with Lady Gaga, wrote her famous hits, and also I wrote some songs for it as well. So there's a connection between the film side
films and the
the
music.
music stuff, which we're going to talk about another time.
Tremendous. I mean, you're right that you do keep quiet about this stuff. In truth, here, I've been working the High Peak area in radio for many years.
Yeah.
We've never spoken before.
No.
You're a very modest chap about some of the things you've done, because some of the
thank you.
stuff you just tell me there is breathtaking, quite frankly.
I think the thing is for me, and maybe this is a bad thing, I was thinking about this when I was on holiday recently, there's always the next thing.
Yes. Well,
you
that's
know,
what I was going to ask you next. What's the next thing?
Well, the next thing, there's we're looking at another film called The Night Swimmer, which is going to be set in New York and shot in New York, so expanding from north of Watford a little bit. And we're looking at another film, potentially with the director of The Pebble and the Boy.
Yeah.
Book of Love 2.
Wow.
So we always have a slate of about 8 projects.
All ready to go, as it
All ready
were.
to go,
Yeah. What a fascinating chat this has been, Michael. And I can't wait to talk to you about the music aspect of your life and work as well, because to be fair to you, you've done a fair bit in that as well. So can we catch up in the very near future, maybe with one of your colleagues if the opportunity arises?
That would be brilliant. I'd love to do that.
Fabulous. Michael Knowles, many thanks for talking to us on Peak Sound Radio.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Paul Jenner's After 11 guest spot.
Peak Sound Radio.
So this morning on my After 11 guest spot, I'm delighted to be having a chat with Mike Knowles and Peter McGrath. Now, these lads make up a band called WinterGreen. And WinterGreen are, shall we say that these lads have got very diverse talents in different areas. But let's do music today, gentlemen. WinterGreen, how was WinterGreen born, and what's your background in music for both of you? Shall I turn to Peter first, the bass player?
Yeah, well, Mike and myself, we grew up together pretty much in
Pete's a lot older than I am.
12 months. we were neighbours basically when we were kids. We went to different schools, but we knew each other and we saw each other out and about on the street playing action men and football.
Couldn't play with him because
stuff.
he's from the Catholic wing.
Yeah,
That's the 70s for
He
you.
was
That's
from
the
the
70s.
Protestant school and I was from the Catholic school, but there's never any bother with that. And then I think when Mike got to about 11 or 12, he started playing guitars and he stopped playing football with us, and he went off on his own world and what have you. But we kept in touch, and then Mike had a band called the Catchmen, who were pretty popular, had a good following around Stockport and going into central Manchester doing gigs. And you mentioned many talents. I was a music journalist for a spell, and I used to cover them, review their records, go to the gigs and so on. One of my famous ones was Oasis supported them, and I thought Oasis were rubbish.
Hey, isn't that?
And he was right.
That's why my music journalism career ended.
I tell you what, though, what a wonderful thing to be able to report, and what a great thing to be able to say. We were supported by Oasis, and guess what? They weren't a patch on us.
No, exactly. So anyway, to cut a long story short, we ended up in a band together in the mid-90s, didn't we, called Grifter, after the Catchmen had finished. We did that for a couple of years, and then we kind of went our separate ways again. I ended up in a covers band for a decade, playing weddings and things like that. And I got bored of that, came out of that, and just sort of had a chance reconnection with Mike, really, over emails, and we went out for a curry and just picked up where we'd left off, writing songs.
And you said, do you want to be in a band? And I said, as long as you deal with all the shit.
Yeah, so that's what I do. Are you allowed to swear? Mike?
You're allowed one, and that's the only one you're allowed. you say.
bollocks!
I can hear the beat now.
No more. So yeah, I mean, it was funny. We hadn't seen each other for 16 years.
Yes.
But we just picked up where we left off.
That's fantastic.
Which I think, there's a good connection. There's very few people in your life that you have a connection like that with.
Absolutely.
And when we first met up, we just talked for however many hours it was.
Yes, yeah.
Like we'd only seen each other last week.
Yes.
And I was thinking on the way home, I could have carried on talking with him for another 3 hours,
Yeah, and that's special, isn't it? And the place to do that is always over a curry. I would suggest you got that absolutely
definitely.
right.
We're going for one afterwards, aren't we?
There you are.
We've been held together by curry ever since.
Ever since, fabulous. Yeah. So Pete, you've told us about the history of how you guys came together. Who's the creative spark in terms of the writing of songs and things?
I would say mostly Mike. He's he comes up with loads and loads and loads of song ideas. I come up with occasional ones.
Yeah.
Definitely Mike is more in that sort of creative.
It's very collaborative in the way that, and what's really nice is that I write lots of songs, and I write songs in different medium, so like, or media even. And so like we talked about the films, the Book of Love, I wrote songs there, Spanish songs.
Yes.
And I've just written a classical album, we play more orchestrated songs.
Yeah.
Even those I've been running past Pete, just for like going, oh, that line sounds rubbish, or, you know, and sometimes just having that
Feedback.
foil to push you a little bit more, because, you know, sometimes the reasons actually to write in these styles is sometimes to try something harder.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do fall, your fingers go in the same place they've been before, or you come up with a phrase that's a bit hackneyed.
Yes.
And so, like, Pete will be able to say that. Generally, I mean, it's worth actually on my songs. Yeah, because I'm great. Now, on my songs, I'm usually like, oh yeah, that's fine. Oh yeah, I can change it. On his stuff, like, I often more work on the melodic side.
Right.
I'm bringing the melody.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if I try and change the words, then that's when we have more problems.
Gotcha. So, how long is it since you two guys got yourselves together to form this?
WinterGreen
Yes.
came together. I came out of the covers band. My last gig was actually Christmas Eve 2013.
Right.
But we'd already been doing a few acoustic songwriting sessions before that, so it's 9 years ago.
Right.
now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's getting on for. It's the longest I've ever been in a band, I think.
Yeah.
Been in a
We've done 4 albums of stuff
Right.
since then, which is, you know, as well as alongside your day job.
That's a lot of work.
Nice. And the last one I really love
Yeah.
was produced. Well, playing on drums was Grant Cuddy. Shout out for Grant. But on production and it helped on some of the songwriting was Pete Lee.
Right.
And Pete works with everyone from Madonna to Aretha Franklin to Michael Jackson. And then us.
And you as well, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
This was the one that he starts his CV off, obviously.
Of course, track one. Yeah, absolutely.
And we've just done this album called Framed, which is on Spotify and all the platforms.
Yeah.
And it's been brilliant because, like, we've had one of the songs was in one of the films that I've been involved with. So Pebble and the Boy.
Yes.
A song called Sad Strings is like a mod anthem.
Right.
Because of that. So that was great. We did that one, and because of the film Book of Love, we can't go anywhere in Mexico without getting mobbed.
I was going to come to you about this. Come on.
Because basically, in the last film Book of Love, we have the Mexican equivalent of Graham Norton in it, and I got on really well with him. It was a great laugh.
Yeah.
And
he's one of the actors in the film, isn't he?
Gotcha.
And I shared some of the music with him, and he just went, Michael, I love your music. I love your music.
The story he told me, let me butt in here.
Go on.
He bought a cheap guitar in Mexico.
that's
One
true,
night when they'd canned the filming and they were all sat around the fire having a few drinks and that, he got this guitar out and started singing Beatles songs, and everyone joined in, and it was all brilliant. And Graham Norton, Horacio Villalobos is his proper name, isn't it? He was going, Mike, I look, as he's just said. And Mike said, well, Lee, have a listen to this, and handed him our CD.
Yeah.
Next thing we know, he's reviewing us on the Mexican equivalent of the Culture Show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Alongside, what's the name? The one who did the gig at the arena when the bomb went off. Which he brought an album out, so we were reviewed alongside it. I forget the name.
But it's been really nice over there, and and we got subsequent to that quite a lot of Mexican media.
Yes.
So it's just quite weird.
It's just wonderful how these things happen, isn't it? It's you actually remind me of a chat I had an interview on a little while ago with Dave Berry, who you'll perhaps recall from the 1960s.
Yeah.
And Dave's a great fella, and he got his success in the UK definitely, but interestingly he said exactly the same thing happened to him in the Netherlands. So he's actually number ones one after another in the Netherlands. In the UK probably number 6 and a number 3 or something.
The Hollies were like that in the 60s, weren't they?
Yeah.
They carried on a successful following in Scandinavia and Australia and New Zealand. So we haven't quite got to that level yet, but
big in Japan.
it's just nice. It's nice being whoever listens to it. You know, I mean, the album, as I say, really I think an album that reflects songwriting. And, you know, like, that's what we're all about, really. It's songs and about communication. And
No, that's fabulous. Well, I tell you what, chaps, I'm really enjoying this chat. So what I'd like to do with your leave is to do this over a couple of days on my programme. So what we'll do now is break off for today, and then tomorrow we can come back and discuss 2 tracks that I'd love to play for our listeners, and you can tell me all about the tracks, if that's okay.
Great stuff.
Thanks, fellas. Thank you.
The After 11 guest spot is kindly sponsored by Clearview Windows. Paul Jenner's After 11 guest spot.
So, it's my After 11 guest spot again this morning, and following a very enjoyable chat yesterday with Mike Knowles and Peter McGrath, that's the band WinterGreen, we thought it might be nice to do a part 2 because we're having such an interesting conversation, and I'd like to feature the music from your latest album, gentlemen, Framed, if that's okay.
That's cool, yeah.
You've picked out 2 songs. Mike, which 2 are we going for?
Well, I'll talk about one of them. So one of them's called Twice as Strong.
Yep.
And for me, that's like a story song in the tradition of... I'm a huge Ray Davies fan. I'm not saying it's in Ray's league, but it's like... it's a story of somebody who has issues in their love life.
Right.
But it's from a female perspective, and I really like it as a song. It's Davies-esque, but I think with a McCartney-esque catchiness. So
Yeah.
I'm really hanging myself up for a fall now, but yeah, I hope people like it.
It's nice to be proud of your work. There's nothing wrong with that. So, Pete, if I can turn to yourself, the other track that we're looking to play, what would you reckon?
Everybody's got one riot in them.
Yeah.
I chose that one because I wrote it originally. I think I wrote it many years ago, or the germination of the idea for it was, I think it was around about 2011. Everyone just went mad and was trashing shops and going crazy in the country. I can remember it being in the covers band at the time, and we did a gig in the centre of town. There was loads of shops boarded up everywhere, and I just thought, if there's a bit of civil disobedience, how people can get wrapped up in that, and yeah, the idea that everybody can get involved in a riot at least once in their life unexpectedly.
Might be one soon.
It just came from that, and then when we were recording the album, there was all the stuff going on with Donald Trump and Antifa protests and BLM and all that kind of stuff, and there was just, like I say, civil disobedience everywhere. So the song came from that, really, and it ended up on the album, thankfully.
These sound like they're going to be great tunes to listen to, so thank you for that. 2 things I need to ask you, but though, before we play the songs. One is, for people who enjoy these next 2 songs, they're going to want to buy the album.
Yep.
Where do they go? What do they do?
So the album's on all major streaming sites.
Yep.
It can also be bought from Amazon and those type people.
Okay.
We can also give you some contacts for us. What's our
Yeah,
contact?
the main place is obviously Spotify, so if you subscribe to Spotify or you've got Spotify free, you can listen to it for free.
Yep.
The best thing to do is to search for Framed as an album, because there's a couple of other bands called Wintergreen. There's an Irish fiddly-dee band with the same name as us, and there's an American Californian rock band as well.
Okay.
So make sure you get the right
Get
one.
the right one.
But you can follow us on Twitter at Wintergreen Band, and you can, all our links and everything are up on there, because you can get stuff on Amazon, on Apple Tunes or iTunes or whatever it is, Bandcamp, SoundCloud. Music is everywhere these
Indeed
days.
it is.
We're playing in Stockport soon.
And that was my next question.
Yeah,
Gigs,
right,
go
yeah.
on, you beat me to it, Mike.
Such a professional, aren't they?
Good lad.
And so we're playing in the Spinning Top in Stockport. It's a really nice venue. It's like on the 25th of
25th of November.
November.
Supporting an Australian female punk band. Well,
Wow.
that's going to be interesting.
That should be an interesting one, shouldn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, it's going to be a laugh, and we just like... It's great to play. It's a pain in the arse. Oh, got me again.
I think we'll be all right.
It's getting all the gear out and everything, and you start thinking, why am I doing this? But when you start playing, it's really exciting to play.
Yeah, there's a...
I love playing live. I always get pre-match nerves, but once I'm up there, I'm willing to.
More with the football. That's the other thing. The problem with the band is the drummer's a Liverpool fan.
Right.
He's a United fan, and I'm from the northwest, so I support City.
This is a right mixture. It
is,
could be
yeah.
a riot if you're not careful.
Exactly. There's lots of diverse influences that all amalgamate
Which
to
is a
produce
good thing.
Wintergreen.
Which is a good thing, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend time talking to you for the last couple of days. Thanks so much.
Thank
all
you.
the very best with the band, all the very best with the album, and I hope we'll catch up again soon sometime.
I hope so. Thank you very
Great,
much.
thanks very much.
Thanks, fellas. Cheers.
The After 11 guest spot is kindly sponsored by Clearview Windows. Paul Jenner's After 11 guest spot.